Truth Seekers, welcome back. Zach here. It's July 23rd, 2016. The big news story in mainstream media today, Wikileaks has obtained emails from the DNC for the Democratic National Convention showing how Bernie Sanders was not treated fairly on the campaign trail. What I want to show in this video is how Julian Assange and Wikileaks are truly controlled opposition, just like Anonymous, just like Edward Snowden, and all of these stories we get in the mainstream, supposedly about leaked emails, whether they're the DNC, the Pentagon. This is all contrived news, and it's purposefully leaked, and it's all part of an ongoing narrative in this nation. The purpose of this narrative is multiple. One, it builds the narrative from the government that they need more and more ways to protect their data, protect their information from citizens. You know, we've had these magazine covers of Julian Assange over the years saying how much information being leaked is too much, what precautions need to be taken, does the government need more control over the internet? So that's part of it. And then the other thing is all these stories, they create perceptions in society that often divide us, turning people against the military, turning people against their political party, turning people against each other. All of this that is done to us through the media is well calculated and part of an ongoing agenda, an ongoing narrative that's been in place for decades. So let's begin with the controlled opposition part. Julian Assange is the leader of Wikileaks. His name in gematria is the same as government. I want you to see this. Julian Assange in gematria, the leader of Wikileaks, 133, just like government, just like White House, a number coded all over government operations, something I reveal on this channel. And who is he revealing? Emails about Hillary Clinton that are favorable to Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders is a career politician, a Zionist. A lot of liberals are deceived by him. And I agree, a lot of Bernie Sanders' rhetoric is on point. If I had to choose any rhetoric out of all the members of Congress and Senate, I might choose Bernie Sanders, but I still recognize what a Zionist shill he is and that he's not truly here as an honest person. He's just playing his part in the puppet role. He's a voice for many people who are voiceless. But Bernie Sanders is a stooge, make no mistake about it. The entire time he was running his campaign, he's been in Washington to know well enough that he had no chance at becoming president. It's all scripted for Hillary, something I've understood since 2008. Surely Bernie Sanders has understood the same things I do. And for the record, the difference between me and the majority of people who live in this nation is my entire adult life I've been paying attention, writing, documenting, trying to fight back. Almost everyone I know, totally carefree, doesn't follow anything, just keeps up enough with the noise and knows how to buzz when these issues come up, but not know how to think about them. When I say buzz, I mean just maintain the frequency of what they're told. Most people in this nation, they hear the mainstream story, they regurgitate the mainstream story as if it's true, they never even think about it. Some other controlled opposition that we hear a lot about, Anonymous has the same gematria as Washington, D.C. The American meridian is what cuts through Washington, D.C. Also the word authority. Anonymous, often used in the divisive narratives. They're going to hack some so-and-so's email, but not the other person's. It's all political, too. Anything that's covered in the mainstream is controlled opposition. 137 is also the 33rd prime number of Freemason obsession, Federal 33, Order 33. Think about authority, Washington, D.C., a nation founded by Freemasons, fixated on the number. The Masonic Lodge in D.C., 33 pillars on the outside. So that's why we have this picture of Bernie Sanders here. That's why we have a story about WikiLeaks. This is why this entire story exists in the first place. Campaigns in this nation are mostly negative, focused on the negative, focused on why one candidate's not as bad as the other one. Hillary Clinton already running her ads about, what an embarrassing person Donald Trump is based on the things he said on the campaign trail, which is absolutely true. But at the same time, it's still negativity. It's not saying I should be president because I have these ideas and I can fulfill them this way. It's all about I'm better than this person because they're awful. So This story, it casts more negativity. Hillary Clinton, DNC cheating. Concerning the DNC, what it also reminds me of is the Watergate scandal with the resignation of Nixon, and this is something I've been meaning to talk about on this video channel for a long time. So this is the other part of this video. Richard Nixon's resignation was an orchestrated event to make the American people think justice is upheld when it needs to be. Think about what he had to resign for. Supposedly, listening in to DNC conversations about their campaign. Think about how small that really is in perspective of what our federal government does to us every day on a very deceitful level. I mean, we've seen presidents lie us into wars and worse, and none of these people have been impeached. But for spying at conversations for an election, it's all a joke, people. Let me show you just how orchestrated this was. It happened on August 9th, 1974, a date with 110 numerology. The word president in Gematria equals 110. It was also a date with a life or a birth numerology of 38. Gerald Ford became the 38th president on this day. It's all synced up with Gerald Ford. Gerald Ford helped cover up in the Kennedy assassination, the Warren Commission. This was his reward, becoming the president. It was also a date with 91 numerology. Nixon was born January 9th, 9/1, possibly why. The word liberty is 91. Maybe he got the liberty from having to be the president of the United States, a very high puppet position, one that seems to come with a lot of stress. We see how the presidents turn gray in the time they're there. August 9th is also the day that leaves 144 days left in the year. And why that factors in is from when he became president to the day he resigned was 2,027 days. And in numerology terms, that number's the same as 227. The zero doesn't count. When you divide 22 by 7, you get the number for pi, having to do with cycles and circles. And if you count the first 144 decimal points of pi, it sums to 666. All of these numbers in this study have to do with time, cycles, circles. We're talking about the beginning, end of a president, the beginning of a new president. Presidents have been assassinated by these numbers throughout history. I guess if you looked at all of the work I've done on the beginning and end of presidencies, typically having to do with death, the reason all these numbers repeat and show up again and again is exactly that example. It's the end of one cycle, the beginning of another. This was the end of Nixon's presidency, the beginning of Gerald Ford's. So, his name, Richard Milhouse Nixon, most commonly called Richard Nixon. In Gematria, Richard Nixon sums to 74. He resigned in the year 74. Masonic equals 74, Jewish equals 74. It's the Freemasons and Zionists who run this nation. They are the banker tyrants. The presidency is just a puppet position. It's been that way since the beginning of the nation. Richard Nixon, in simple English Gematria, sums to 137. Again, the 33rd prime number. We just talked about how this is coded into Washington, D.C., American Meridian. Richard Milhouse Nixon also sums to 234. That number is connected to 666. If you add 234 to its reflection, 432, 234 plus 432 equals 666. Bringing us back to the day he resigned on. The first 144 decimal points of pi, 666. 227, bringing us back to pi. 137 is the 33rd prime. Again, federal 33, order 33, secrecy 33, masonry 33. From his birthday, Nixon's birthday, to his resignation date was 212 days. 212 days. Gerald Rudolph Ford in Gematria sums to 212, the exact man who would replace him. And again, as I continue to explain, dates of significance, when they are important to a person and they're part of this Masonic network, this Masonic puppet show, when you measure from the birthday, the numbers of significance are always revealed. So 212 days after his birthday, he's resigning, and his vice president is becoming the 38th president on a date with 38 numerology. Nixon was born on a date with 42 numerology, like Freemason. He would die on a date with 139 numerology, like Freemasonry. A date with a life lesson number of 49, like Revelation, like Washington. This nation established from the book of Revelation. The Church of Philadelphia comes from Revelation. Revelation equals 49. Philadelphia, the original capital, moved to New York, and then Washington, D.C. Philadelphia, New York, and Washington, D.C. all have major Revelation connections. From his birthday to his death in 94 was 104 days, or 3 months and 14 days. 3.14 is the number for pi. 22 divided by 7 gives us 3.14. If you write out 22 divided by 7 as words in gematria, it sums to 314. Anyway, 104, also a special number, like 10-4 message received. The United States of America established 7-4-1776, a date with 104 numerology. They just built the One World Trade Center in New York that's 104 floors tall, 1,776 feet. Again, the nation established in 1776 on a date with a 104 numerology. The name Gerald Ford in gematria, the small way, 104. The big way, 212. Just show you this, the small way here on the calculator. You can see how Gerald Ford very much connected in numbers to the resignation of Nixon, as well as his death nearly 20 years later. In my book, where I show presidential assassinations, I show how all of the vice presidents sync up perfectly as well. This is a pattern from history. Again, this scandal over the DNC, just like today's news. Donald Trump just gave a 74-minute speech ending at 11:33. Cleveland equals 33, 74-minute speech. Gerald Ford would end up dying on a date with 44 numerology, the number connected to killing. So many presidents have died by this number, 44. And when you write out 44, it sums to 144, like Nixon resigning on the day with 144 days left in the year, August 9th. Show you something interesting about the Watergate scandal. Watergate in Jewish gematria sums to 1199, numbers that remind me a lot of 119, like All-Seeing Eye, Star of David, September 11th. Watergate happened June 17th, 1972. Nixon would resign August 9th, 74, 112 weeks later, and his resignation came on information being leaked by somebody called Deep Throat, supposedly. Deep Throat in gematria sums to 112. 112 is the alt dialing code for 911. The date of the break-in, a date with 42 numerology, Freemason 42, a date with 33 numerology, gate equals 33. This was called Watergate. After this is where the gate label stuck. A lot of things were explained as gate after this happened. Again, he would resign on the date with 110 numerology, a date with 38 numerology as well. Gerald Ford became the 38th president. He resigned. Just wanted to show how he was facing impeachment. Impeach has gematria of 330, similar to gate, 33 for Watergate. Gate in Jewish gematria is also interesting because it sums to 113, mainstream 113, dishonest equals 113. And all of these stories, all of these controversies, they're contrived narratives to make people focus on really non-relevant issues. This is a country that's literally always at war, illegal wars for greed. They are essentially legitimized murder, and people constantly in this country have to be forced to look at something else new. You know, there's always some new nonsensical controversy. Watergate was very much one of those. These days, it's gotten so bad, we have things such as Deflategate. Never seen my work on Deflategate. It was all by the numbers, too. Deep Throat was revealed as Mark Felt. This guy previously in life had said that he wasn't Deep Throat. he made the confession supposedly when he was suffering from dementia. The name Mark Felt's interesting, though, because it has the same gematria as pyramid, symbol, triangle, republic, special number. So, it's pretty much the extent of it. Don't get caught up in these mainstream stories. When those of you write to me and ask me, hey, Zach, is this story real? It tells me that my message isn't getting through. My message is the mainstream is always contrived. We're not getting real information. We're just constantly getting fed these nonsensical stories that make us flow along this path of agenda and narrative, Bernie Sanders, a guy like that's a fraud because he gets out there and talks about Al-Qaeda and ISIS as if it's real. Who it is the Zionist banker tyrants. They're the only real terrorists of this world. They're the people contriving these little militias to stir up little problems so that they can film them and make big bad news out of it. You get rid of these banker Zionist tyrants that ruin our government, that rule our government, that control Bernie Sanders, Richard Nixon, and all of them. You get rid of these people, then we'll stop being terrorized. Bernie Sanders never said that on the campaign trail. That's why I know he's a fraud. Instead, he talked about the boogeymen that aren't real. All you Bernie Sanders supporters, you need to wake up. You're fooled by the boogeymen too, otherwise you'd know Bernie Sanders is a fraud. Until next time.